After a month without seeing her, Claire suddenly handed me a divorce lawyer's business card, without asking a single question like, "Are you okay?" or "How are you feeling?" That kind of question no longer seemed to belong to her. Divorcing a husband who doesn't work, then making him pay me $1,500 a month in alimony, sounds reasonable. Take care. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. Before I could react, Lucas Bennett, my best friend from high school at Lincoln High School, walked in. Lucas, the man I once considered a brother, stood right beside Claire, his arm around her, wearing the same smug smile. "It's simple, Nate," he said, his voice casual, with a mocking chuckle. "Get divorced, pay $1,500 a month, and everyone moves on. Take care of yourself, buddy." He laughed loudly, exchanging a look with Claire, as if they'd just won a big bet, a look full of meaning that I couldn't mistake. I looked at them, my heart feeling like it stopped. Claire, the woman I loved for over 20 years, and Lucas, the man I trusted more than myself, now stood there, betraying me together. The sound of rain outside drowned out everything, and the room suddenly felt claustrophobic. I wanted to scream, to punch the wall, but I just sat there, my hand gripping the paintbrush tightly. "Fine, let's get divorced," I said, my voice so calm it surprised even me. "Do it." Claire frowned slightly, clearly not expecting me to agree so easily. Lucas flinched, his smile faltering for a second, but he quickly regained his smug demeanor, sharing a smile with Claire as if they'd planned everything. "Good job, Nate," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm, then put his arm around Claire and left. The door slammed shut, leaving me with the business card on the table, and the heavy sound of rain. I picked up the card, clutching it tightly in my hand. Claire and Lucas thought I was a failed artist, living off this apartment. They didn't know what I had, didn't know how strong I was. Lucky for me, Lucas isn't much of a thinker. That made my plan easy. I stood up, walked to the window, and watched the raindrops slide down the glass. In my mind, a plan for revenge took shape. I would make them cry, make them pay for every smug smile today, as a way for me to rise from these ruins. I returned to my desk, picked up the phone, and called my lawyer. "Rebecca Klein." "Rebecca," I said, my voice low but firm, "prepare the divorce papers, and get ready for a long fight." On the other end, she let out a soft laugh. "I hear you, Nate. The game's on." Outside, the rain still fell steadily on the tin roof, but inside me, a fire had just ignited. Claire and Lucas would soon realize they'd underestimated the wrong person. As they left the studio, leaving behind the white business card and their scornful smiles, I sat silently, watching the raindrops hit the window. That small piece of paper remained there, like a cold cut, reminding me of their betrayal. I closed my eyes, and memories I thought were buried began to resurface. Those days at Lincoln High School, where Claire Donovan and Lucas Bennett were once an inseparable trio. They were once the two closest people in my life. I thought we'd walk together until the end of the road. But now, they stood on the same side, against me. To understand why everything shattered like this, I had to go back in time, to where it all began. Back then, in Portland, we were carefree kids, running around in Laurelhurst Park, eating ice cream from roadside stands, and dreaming about the future. Claire was the standout girl with blonde hair and a radiant smile, always drawing every eye. Lucas was the opposite, a talkative, charming guy, but with something unsettling about him. He loved being the center of attention, loved making others revolve around him. And me, Nate Harper, I was just a quiet kid, scribbling in my notebook and dreaming of becoming an artist. But Claire and Lucas made me feel like I belonged. When we got to high school, things changed. Lucas started noticing Claire, always finding ways to be near her. From sitting next to her in class, to inviting her to movies at the Hollywood Theater. I thought he was in love with Claire, and I just watched from the sidelines. But one day, before graduation, Lucas suddenly called me out to the basketball court behind the school. "Nate, I think you should confess to Claire," he said, his voice casual. "I can tell she likes you." I was stunned. I'd had a crush on Claire for a long time, but never dared to dream. "You sure?" I asked. Lucas grinned, patting my shoulder. "Absolutely, I know it." It took me a whole week to muster the courage. I checked with Lucas again, and he just laughed. "Go for it, buddy. Claire will say yes." Finally, I asked Claire to meet me by the Willamette River, under a blazing red sunset. "Claire, I like you," I said, my heart pounding. Claire smiled, her eyes gentle. "Nate, I like you too." We started dating, and I thought it was the best thing that ever happened. But Lucas wasn't as simple as I thought. He had a habit of making every girl fall for him, then dropping them when they got too attached. He once broke a classmate's heart, then laughed it off, as she cried in the school hallway. Lucas's parents were worried, so Claire and I often dragged him along to keep an eye on him. We thought it was a way to protect him from trouble. Looking back now, I wonder if Lucas had been scheming all along, waiting for a chance to worm his way into my life with Claire. We got married when we were both 25, in a small ceremony at Cannon Beach, with the sound of crashing waves and a cool breeze. Lucas was my best man, standing beside me with a beaming smile. "Congrats, buddy," he said, raising a beer. "You got the best girl there is." I smiled, believing he meant it. A few years later, Lucas married Megan Walsh, a smart accountant he met at an event in the Pearl District. Megan was calm, the complete opposite of Lucas. We became two close couples, often hanging out on weekends, camping at Mount Hood, or grabbing beers at a riverside bar. Those gatherings were the rare joy in my life. We sat around campfires, told jokes, listened to the waves crash at Cannon Beach, or gazed silently at the starry sky on the mountain. Claire was always radiant. Lucas bragged animatedly about his dramatic advertising job, and Megan, ever gentle, occasionally chimed in with a quip that made us all laugh. I believed we'd built a family unbound by blood, but stronger than kinship. Looking back now, I realized Claire had started to change long ago. Her glances at Lucas lingered a little too long, and their laughter together sounded like a song I wasn't invited to join. I tried to ignore it, because I trusted her, trusted Lucas, trusted our love, our friendship, our bond. The patter of rain on the tin roof snapped me back to reality. Out there, the sky was still gray, and in the studio, the lawyer's business card lay alone on the table like a knife yet to be pulled. Claire and Lucas had betrayed me, but if the past taught me anything, it was this. Lucas always knew how to manipulate others. He wasn't clever in a calculating way, but sly enough to make people do what he wanted. And that smugness would be his fatal flaw, a weakness I could exploit. I picked up my phone, opened a message from Rebecca Klein. "All the paperwork is ready," she wrote. My lips tightened, a cold smile flickering. The game had just begun. I looked out at the gloomy sky, beyond the window, where raindrops fell steadily like the size of a marriage, slowly unraveling. Claire and Lucas thought they'd won, but they didn't know I held the most valuable thing, the truth. And the truth, even if it arrives late, always finds its way back. Everything started a few years after we got married. Claire and I lived happily in our small house in Beaverton, where I painted in the attic studio, and she worked part-time in the Pearl District. We didn't want kids, not because we didn't love them, but because we both cherished our freedom. Our evening walks by the Willamette River, or sipping craft beers at our favorite bar. Lucas and Megan were the same, often joining us at Cannon Beach or Mount Hood, laughing around campfires. But then Megan got pregnant, and everything started to go off track. I still remember the day Megan shared the news. We were having dinner at a small riverside restaurant, the golden light reflecting on her radiant face. "Lucas, I'm pregnant," Megan said, her voice trembling with joy. Lucas laughed loudly, hugging Megan, while Claire clapped and cheered. I smiled, raising my beer to toast. "Congrats, you two," I said, genuinely happy for them. But at that moment, I noticed Claire's eyes, a fleeting hint of jealousy, or something I couldn't name. I brushed it off, thinking I was imagining things. But from that day, Claire changed. She started spending more time with Megan, claiming she was helping a friend. She asked me to stop drinking coffee at night, saying the smell bothered Megan during her pregnancy. "Can't you see Megan needs support, Nate?" Claire said, her voice sharp. I shrugged, agreeing, though it felt odd. Then Claire began driving Megan to doctor's appointments in downtown Portland, using her days off to go with her. I didn't complain. Megan was a friend, and Claire was just helping. But when I saw Claire showing up at events for Megan's daughter, Sophie, like her kindergarten graduation, instead of Lucas, I started to suspect something. One evening, when Claire came home late from a doctor's visit with Megan, I couldn't stay silent anymore. We sat in the living room, the dim light casting shadows on Claire's face. "Claire, you're always with Megan," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Lucas might get jealous. I don't want trouble." Claire frowned, looking at me like I'd said something stupid. "Jealous? What are you talking about, Nate? Megan's been my best friend since we were kids. She needs me." "You're busy painting, right? You're so heartless." Her accusing tone stunned me. I tried to explain. "I help too. I buy things for Sophie. I pick her up sometimes. But doctor's visits should be Lucas's job, not yours." Claire stood up abruptly, her eyes flashing with anger. Because Megan wants it, okay. She's anxious going alone. You want me to abandon my friend? I replied, my voice rising. If Megan's anxious, Lucas should be there even more. You're always gone. People will think you're Sophie's mom. Claire let out a mocking laugh, one I'd never heard before. Jealous, Nate? You're not planning to have kids anyway, right? So what's there to complain about? Her words hit like a punch. We rarely argued in all our years of marriage. But this time, Claire didn't just push back. She insulted me. I went silent, watching her turn and walk upstairs, leaving me with the dim light and the sound of rain outside. From then on, our arguments grew. Claire spent even more time with Megan and Sophie, from picking her up at kindergarten to attending her little performances. Lucas didn't seem to mind, even encouraging Claire, which made me more uneasy. I started wondering if there was something between Claire and Lucas I wasn't seeing. When Sophie was born, things got worse. Claire didn't just keep attending Sophie's events. She spent entire weekends at Lucas and Megan's house, leaving me alone in the studio. I tried talking to her, but every conversation ended in a fight. You don't understand, Nate, Claire said, her voice weary. Sophie needs me. Megan needs me. You just care about your paintings. I wanted to scream that I needed her too, but I stayed silent, just like I'd kept my income a secret. Outside the studio window, the raindrops slid quietly, pulling me back to the cold reality. The lawyer's business card lay there, no longer just a piece of paper. It was the end of trust, of love, and of a past that was once so beautiful between me, Claire, and Lucas. But I was no longer the naive Nate, living in old illusions. I opened my phone, read a message from Rebecca Klein. First piece of evidence secured. Attached was a photo of Claire and Lucas entering the hotel. A cold smile crossed my lips. Since the night Megan came to me, her face pale with anger, with pain, we'd become silent allies. She brought the truth I'd refused to face, and from that day we stood side by side, caring for little Sophie, while quietly gathering evidence, waiting for the day to expose the betrayers. I called Claire from the hospital, my voice trembling. Claire, I have cancer. I'll be in the hospital for a long time, I said, hoping for a shred of care from the wife of over 20 years. But Claire only replied, her voice flat, as if discussing the weather. All right, just rest. I'll visit when I'm free. Not a single question about my condition, not a word of comfort. I gripped the phone tightly, feeling like my heart was being crushed. Claire had no feelings left for me, and that was clearer than ever. I was moved to a hospital room at Oregon Health and Science University, where the cold white light and the hum of machines reminded me of lonely days. I tried to keep working, sketching on a tablet, though my health was fading. But every stroke felt heavy, carrying the pain of betrayal. Claire visited once a month, sometimes every 2 months, each time for less than 10 minutes. She stood at the door, glancing at her watch, muttering about being busy with work in the Pearl District. You okay, Nate? She asked, but her eyes held no care. And the Arcorda, I just nodded, not wanting to waste energy on someone who'd turned her back on me. What worried me more was Sophie. The girl, now 15, used to visit me almost every day when I was first admitted, bringing clumsy drawings and a radiant smile. Uncle Nate, you have to get better soon, Sophie said, warming my heart. But after her 15th birthday, Sophie suddenly grew distant. She stopped coming, only sending brief texts. I'm busy with school, don't worry. Megan and I tried to ask, but Sophie just said, it's nothing, her voice cryptic. I lay in the hospital bed, staring out at the rain, wondering if Sophie knew something about Claire and Lucas. Then one day, the hospital room door opened, and Claire walked in, followed by Lucas. They appeared like a perfect couple. Claire's arm linked with Lucas's, both wearing the same smug smiles I'd seen in the studio during the divorce demand. Claire held out a lawyer's business card, just like before. Nate, we're getting divorced, she said, her voice ice cold. Divorcing a husband who does nothing. You pay me $1,500 a month in alimony. That's fair. Take care. Lucas smirked, patting Claire's shoulder. Simple, Nate, he said, his voice mocking. Pay up, and everyone moves on. Look after yourself, buddy. I looked at them, my heart tearing apart. Not a single question about my health. Not a trace of guilt. Claire and Lucas stood there, as if I were just an obstacle to remove. The rain outside drowned out all sound, but I stayed calm, though I wanted to scream. Fine, let's divorce, I said, my voice so calm it surprised me. Claire frowned, clearly not expecting me to agree so easily. Lucas flinched, his smile faltering, but he quickly laughed loudly, sharing a look with Claire. Good job, Nate, he said. Then they left, leaving me with the card and a heavy silence. I clutched the card, my nails digging into my palm. Claire and Lucas thought I was weak, thought I was crumbling. They didn't know I'd been preparing for a long time, with Megan in a pile of evidence. Lucky for me, Lucas didn't think deeply. That made my plan easier. I decided to transfer to a facility in Lake Oswego, closer to Megan and Sophie, to prepare for the next step. I called Rebecca Klein, my lawyer. "Rebecca, speed up the divorce papers," I said, my voice firm, "and prepare for the big plan." Rebecca chuckled softly over the phone. "I'm ready, Nate." From my new hospital room, I looked out the window, gripping the lawyer's business card. Claire left behind, her cold divorce demand, and Lucas's smug smile still haunted me. But I was no longer the weak Nate of old. After calmly agreeing to the divorce, I'd moved to be closer to Megan and Sophie, ready to strike back. With my lawyer Rebecca Klein's support and Megan's evidence of the affair, I had everything prepared. Now was the time to make Claire and Lucas pay. I started by contacting Megan Walsh. "Megan, it's time to act," I said, over the phone, my voice low but firm. She agreed, and we coordinated closely. The first step was to cut off Claire and Lucas's foundation. The Beaverton apartment they were living in was actually rented under my name, since I started freelancing. Claire and Lucas didn't know, as I always paid the rent and bills, while they contributed a small amount. I called the real estate agent, requesting to cancel the lease right after the divorce papers were signed. "Make sure they're out in a few days," I said. The agent, an old acquaintance in Portland, agreed to handle it without notifying Claire. At the same time, I moved most of my belongings from Beaverton to the hospital and a storage unit in Lake Oswego. "Let Claire and Lucas deal with the rest," I told Megan, my voice cold. "I don't want to keep anything they touched." Megan laughed softly over the phone. "They'll panic, Nate. Just wait." And she was right. A few days later, while I was sketching in my hospital room, my phone buzzed relentlessly. The screen showed 30 missed calls from Claire. I smirked, put it on speaker, and heard Claire's panicked voice. "Nate, what the hell is going on? Why do we have to move out?" I kept my voice calm, like when I agreed to the divorce. "That's my house, Claire. I canceled the lease, obviously." I heard Lucas yelling in the background, mixed with a real estate agent trying to explain. "Yours? Don't mess around. What are we supposed to do?" Claire screamed. I shrugged, though she couldn't see. "I don't know. Stay in a hotel." Claire kept shouting, but I hung up, unwilling to listen further. Lucas called a few times, but I blocked his number. They thought I was weak, but now they were tasting panic. Next, I contacted my parents, Harold and Linda Harper, who own a small construction company in Portland. I'd kept the divorce quiet, but now it was time to tell the truth. I called from the hospital, explaining Claire and Lucas's betrayal. "I can't believe they did this, Dad," I said, my voice choking. My dad, strict but loving, was furious. "Lucas works for my company and dares betray you? He's done." A few days later, Dad fired Lucas for falsifying expenses, a perfect excuse, backed by evidence from Megan. Lucas lost his job, his home, and I knew he was sinking into despair. But the decisive blow came from Sophie. Megan and I decided to tell her the truth, though we knew it would hurt. We met Sophie at a cafe by the Willamette River, where the golden light reflected on her anxious face. "Sophie, there's something you need to know," I said gently. Megan took a deep breath and explained that Claire was Sophie's biological mother, the result of her affair with Lucas. Sophie went silent, her eyes welling up, but then she grabbed my hand. "Uncle Nate, Aunt Megan, I only want to be with you too," she said, her voice trembling. "I don't need them." Sophie's words were like medicine soothing my pain. Sophie chose to live with Megan, and I supported them from the hospital, sending money and calling daily. When Claire and Lucas learned Sophie had turned away, they called, begging me. "Nate, what's going on? Why won't Sophie see us?" Claire yelled over the phone. I replied coldly, "We're strangers now, Claire. Don't contact me. My lawyer will handle it." Lucas tried calling, but I blocked him. Rebecca Klein reported that Claire and Lucas refused to respond to her, a childish move but not unexpected. I smirked, knowing they were digging themselves deeper. Finally, I received damages from Claire and Lucas through Rebecca, a sum enough to make them feel the consequences. The rain still fell outside my hospital room window, but I felt relieved. Claire and Lucas had lost everything: home, job, Sophie, and dignity. I looked at the sketch on my tablet, a new book inspired by Sophie. "This is a new beginning," I murmured. I texted Megan, Step 1 complete. Ready for the next? She replied instantly. Absolutely ready, Nate. After canceling the Beaverton lease, informing my parents, and getting Lucas fired, I felt a piece of justice had been served. Sophie, the 15-year-old at the center of so much conflict, had chosen to stay with me and Megan, turning her back on Claire and Lucas. The lawyer's business card Claire left was now just a meaningless scrap on the table. But I knew the battle wasn't over. Claire and Lucas had to face the consequences, and I, though still in the hospital, was building a new future with Sophie and my career. Claire and Lucas fell into ruin, faster than I expected. Lucas, once a smug ad executive in the Pearl District, now had to work on a fishing boat in Astoria, a few hours' drive from Portland. The grueling job, with long days at sea, was a nightmare for a guy used to an office. I heard from my dad, Harold Harper, that Lucas called, begging to return to the company, but Dad refused outright. He betrayed you, Nate, Dad said over the phone, his voice full of anger. He doesn't deserve it. Lucas tried contacting me a few times, leaving long voicemails apologizing, but I forwarded them to Dad. Eventually the calls stopped, and I knew he'd accepted his fate. Claire was even worse off. After losing custody of Sophie in a court hearing handled by Rebecca Klein, she was disowned by her family. Without the Beaverton apartment or Lucas's support, Claire moved to a rundown apartment in Gresham, a suburb far from any glamour. She'd never worked full-time, always relying on me or Lucas, so now she juggled part-time jobs from cashier at a convenience store to cleaning offices. Claire also had to pay child support for Sophie, a burden that left her struggling. Once she showed up at my book signing at Powell's City of Books, her eyes sunken, begging for forgiveness. "Nate, please, help me," she said, her voice trembling. I looked at her, my voice cold. "We're strangers, Claire. Leave." Security escorted her out, and I didn't look back. While Claire and Lucas crumbled, Sophie rose strong. The girl, now living with Megan in a small house near the Lake Oswego Hospital, became a light in my darkest days. Sophie studied hard, aiming for a scholarship to an art school in London. "I want to translate Uncle Nate's books into French," Sophie said, her eyes sparkling as we sat at a cafe by the Willamette River. "I want kids around the world to read them." I ruffled her hair, moved by her big dreams. Sophie wrote an essay about me for her scholarship application, describing how I taught her to draw in Washington Park and stood by her despite my illness. "You're my real dad," she said, warming my heart. My career was soaring too. From my hospital bed I kept painting, finishing new children's books and signing a deal for an animated film based on my work. Producers in Portland contacted me regularly, sending updates on scripts and character designs. My books sold well, appearing on shelves at Powell's City of Books and stores across Oregon. I even got an invitation to hold an art exhibit at the Portland Art Museum, a milestone I'd always dreamed of. Every brushstroke, every story, was how I turned pain into strength. My health was improving too. Dr. Michael Tran, at Oregon Health and Science University, who transferred me to Lake Oswego, recently checked and said I could be discharged within a year if I kept progressing well. "You're a fighter, Nate," he said, smiling. I nodded, a sense of hope creeping in. From my hospital bed, I looked out the window, where sunlight filtered through the maple trees. Portland's rain had stopped, at least for today. I picked up my phone, checking a message from Megan. "Sophie just got an A on her essay," she wrote, attaching a photo of Sophie's beaming smile. I smiled, replying, "She's amazing. Thanks, Megan." Claire and Lucas were now mere shadows of the past, but Sophie was my future. I opened my tablet, continuing a new painting, a girl with a paintbrush under a red maple, inspired by Sophie. One afternoon, Megan visited, bringing Sophie and a box of pastries from a favorite shop in the Pearl District. Sophie, glowing in a green sweater, talked about the essay that won her a scholarship to an art school in London. "Uncle Nate, I'm going to translate your books into French," she said, her eyes shining. I ruffled Sophie's hair. "You'll do it, Sophie. I believe in you." As Sophie ran to the hallway to call a friend, Megan took my hand, her eyes soft but serious. "Nate," she said, her voice trembling, "when you're discharged, I want us to live together. Me, you, and Sophie. A real family. What do you think?" I was stunned, my heart racing. Megan, who'd stood by me through the darkness, was opening her heart. I didn't answer right away, but looking into her eyes, I felt a genuine love, unlike anything Claire ever gave me. "Give me time to think," Megan said, smiling, then hugged me gently. Sophie ran back, breaking the moment, but I knew my heart was leaning toward Megan. Not because she filled Claire's void, but because she truly understood me. My career kept soaring. I finished a new children's book, inspired by Sophie, and held a successful launch at Powell's City of Books. Hundreds lined up for signatures, kids clutching my books with bright smiles. The animated film project based on my work progressed, with Portland producers sending drafts of character designs. I accepted an invitation to exhibit my art at the Portland Art Museum, where my painting of Sophie under a red maple was praised. Each success proved I'd overcome Claire and Lucas's darkness. My health brought hope too. Dr. Michael Tran checked and said I could be discharged sooner than expected, maybe in a few months, if I kept improving. "You're stronger than you know, Nate," he said, patting my shoulder. From my hospital bed, I looked out at the Willamette River, where sunlight sparkled. Portland's rain had given way to light, and I felt a deep healing. Before heading to London, Sophie visited with a special gift. "Uncle Nate, I painted this for you," she said, handing me a picture. Me, Megan, and Sophie under a red maple, like the one I'd painted. I hugged Sophie, my eyes stinging. "I'll come back, Uncle," she promised. "I want to work with you. Bring your books to the world." I nodded, endlessly proud. I opened my tablet, continuing a new story about a family found after loss. Each stroke was a promise for the future. I thought of Megan's proposal, and though I hadn't answered, I knew I wanted to be with her, with Sophie, building a true home. Rain might return to Portland, but I'd found my own sunlight. The story of Nathaniel Nate Harper in Portland, Oregon, reflects the challenges and values of modern American life, from financial pressures to the power of resilience. Nate, an artist earning $500,000 a year, hid his income to protect his marriage with Claire Donovan, but was betrayed by her and his best friend Lucas Bennett, who demanded a divorce and alimony in Beaverton. Nate's journey, facing cancer, allying with Megan Walsh, caring for Sophie, and thriving in his career at Powell's City of Books, embodies American values of individualism and chosen family. Sophie, 15, choosing Nate and Megan over her biological parents, reflects the trend of family built on love in America's diverse communities. Nate painting in the Lake Oswego Hospital, turning pain into success, highlights the American spirit of pursuing passion. The lesson from the story is that in American society, where financial stress and loneliness can shake trust, honesty and perseverance are key to overcoming adversity. Nate's hidden income led to misunderstandings with Claire, teaching that open communication, a core American value, builds trust. His alliance with Megan and love for Sophie in Washington Park show the need for genuine relationships, especially as isolation grows in America. Sophie calling Nate her real dad underscores that family is about love, not just blood, a vital lesson in diverse American communities. Nate finishing children's books and exhibiting at the Portland Art Museum, despite illness, encourages persevering in passion, like America's entrepreneurial spirit. Live honestly, build a supportive community, and never give up, like Nate by the Willamette River. Subscribe to the channel to follow Nate and Sophie's journey of overcoming adversity and the inspiring lessons from Portland. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video with new stories by the Willamette River.